Whenever I work with somebody new, I usually ask them two different questions. What business are you in and what are you selling? And that may seem like a trick question, but it's not. And what you would expect to hear when I ask that question is, oh, I'm a restaurant owner or I'm a manager and we sell food and drink. And I stop them right there and I'm like, wrong. When I ran restaurants, I was not in the business of running a restaurant. I was in the business of running a business. And those are two completely different things. And my products were not food and drink, they were entertainment, consistency, and a whole lot of good times. And that made all the difference for me. So you can kind of see that paradigm shift. That was my approach. It was not about running a restaurant, it was about building a business and building a brand and then selling entertainment and consistency and good times. So that's kind of what I'm all about. That's a mantra of mine. So the pandemic shifted everything in our business. It turned everything upside down and sideways. And before the pandemic, and even now, it's very hard to break those old patterns. But I hate the word manager and management. I hate the word boss. I hate the word delegation. I am completely anti to all those things. And my paradigm shift is a new and different approach. And it is literally leadership, not management, because I believe anyone can be promoted to a manager in a restaurant. Anyone can hold that title, but that does not mean that they're experienced. That does not mean that they're competent to lead. That does not mean that they inspire and get the best performance out of the team. And that's the difference. So leading by example means not being the boss, barking orders at people, not, hiding in the office. It's literally about being involved in your team's lives and getting involved in their contributions in your business and seeing a spark in people and recognizing talent in others and seeing where they can fit and where they can go in their careers, because your goal is to keep these people. You want to keep your people happy, you want to move them up in the organization. And it's okay if you've got an outstanding fry cook or a dishwasher, and if that's all they want to do, I'm fine with that. But there are lots of people that will leave you unless you give them opportunity to make great money and find a new path in their career, and you can provide opportunities, but you got to recognize that talent. So delegation, I hate that word because everybody uses it. It's overused, but it basically means to tell somebody what to do or even how to do it. Anybody can do that, but very few people can empower people to recognize talent, give them additional responsibility, inspire them forward. Not be afraid to let them take chances and even make mistakes. And instead of criticizing like a boss would, we critique. And we always do that in private. And we also praise people when they do something right. And we always do that in public. Like I used to praise my people always in front of guests, in front of other team members. That's powerful stuff. So that's empowerment. But there has to be recognition and rewards to make the whole thing work. And we're going to talk about what some of those things are. The first thing you gotta do is keep your people happy. It's like people are still struggling with this labor crisis. We're coming out of it now, and more people are returning to restaurants, but there's still lots of restaurants out there that are having staffing issues. But the one thing you don't wanna do is lose the good people you have. And in order to do that, you gotta give them a voice. It's like when I owned these restaurants, I always had an open door policy, and people could knock on that door. The door was always open. Hey, Roger, you got a minute? And I would drop whatever I was doing because my people were the foundation of my business, and I was always happy to talk to them. And it was never annoying for me. It was always like, yeah, what's on your mind? What can I do? And I recognized that, that was empowerment unto itself when they weren't afraid to approach the boss or the owner. I never called myself the boss. I was a leader by example, but they were never afraid to talk to me. So I gave them a voice. And I'll tell you more about that because just before the pandemic, even though I'd sold all these restaurants, I had the brilliant idea of buying another restaurant. And I went through all that, 2 years of hell, just like a lot of your listeners court are going through, but I'll talk about that in a second. MMDD on the top line. What does that mean? Now, this is not my idea, but I think it's brilliant because it's another way we can give people a voice. MMDD is something that another restaurant operator uses on a daily and weekly basis. And it can be either anonymous with an old fashioned suggestion box where people kind of put things in it, or it can be an email where they attach their name to it, but it stands for Made My Day Difficult. What made my day difficult today? And then you read these things at the end of the shift or even first thing in the morning. It's like, if there's something that we can do to make our people's lives easier, more productive, and happier, they're going to be happier here. They're going to be more productive team members. I love Made My Day Difficult because it gives them a voice and it gives them a chance to share. Because if you don't, let your people know that you're open to their ideas, then they're just regular robots in your business, just going about their daily duties and they're not going above and beyond. And that is sort of a foundational to company culture, which we're going to get into also. Okay, flexibility. You see, it's got a question mark next to it because, again, when restaurants are short staffed, how can we possibly be flexible? Flexibility means everyone has a life outside your restaurant. The unexpected happens to all of us. Maybe you got a sick kid and you can't afford daycare, or you got to be at home with this kid when you can't perform your shift. And this happens at a moment's notice. All kinds of things happen, doctor's appointments, things happen in our employees' lives, and we really need to be flexible to that. And the only way we can do that and still make the business go on and work is if we cross train people. Now, one of the benefits in my business was I had multiple people that could do multiple things, and that's because we cross-trained them. So I had dishwashers that could be fry cooks, and I had hosts that could be bussers, and I had servers that could be bartenders. And we gave them additional training to do this. And some people would say, oh, well, that costs a lot of money. They're on payroll and I'm training them to do something else. Well, that's the wrong approach. It's really about an investment in your future because if you've got cross-trained people that can do multiple things, when the unexpected happens, you've got a backup plan. Merit raises are really important. People want to know that you recognize what they're doing and that they're earning their way forward. So if you give them additional responsibility or if they're just outstanding at what they do, even if they're the dishwasher or the fry cook, from time to time, we have to do this. We're going to talk a little bit later in this about how we can pay for these high labor costs, which are crushing today, but I've got some ideas for that. Incentives for meeting goals. I'm going to get into more detail about that. And then fix what's broken. Let me go back to that restaurant I bought before the pandemic. It was a turnaround situation. It was your grandma's breakfast place, old fashioned lunch and breakfast counter, the old fashioned booths and all that kind of stuff. And I bought it for a couple of reasons. I bought it because it was going to be an investment. I didn't want to work there. I just wanted to systemize it, get strong leaders to run it, and then work on improving its value. It had two apartments over it. It had a beautiful barn that we were going to think about turning into a wood-fired pizzeria, and a bar with an outdoor courtyard. The Italian lights have acoustic music out there besides your grandma's lunch counter. So we saw this opportunity. We owned it for a couple of months and then the pandemic hits. But before any of that happened, you know how people can sometimes get really scared. It's like people like to be in their comfort zones. And when a business changes hands and there's a new owner, the existing staff get really worried sometimes. It's like, oh, is this guy going to be a jerk? Is he going to change everything? Is he going to be difficult to work for? It's like, I don't like change, is what the typical feeling is. And I knew this, right? So I tried to make people comfortable right off the bat. So in the process of just taking over this business, I sat down with each and every team member personally, explained a little bit about myself, what I'd done before, about what the plans were for the business, and then I asked them, I'm like, you tell me what's going on here. What makes your life difficult? What makes your life hard? Is there anything we can do to make things happier for you, easier for you? We're willing to do that. And they sang like canaries. It's like I had a baker and she had to put out all these giant cinnamon buns every day, fresh baked muffins, like huge batch of baking. She'd get there at 5 in the morning. She'd have to have everything ready for 6:30. And she's like, that mixer, sometimes it works fine, and other times I'm in the middle of the dough and the thing just stops and I have to kick it or jiggle the plug or whatever, and it's a real downer. We fixed the mixer. The kitchen guy says the kitchen is so hot. There's no ventilation here. It's 900 degrees. We're on our feet for 6 hours. There's no rubber mats in front of any of the equipment. We went out and we bought him those Skechers shoes, the really cushy Skechers shoes. We brought in the rubber mats. We air conditioned the kitchen. We made their lives 100 times better. They were happy with that. So I guess the key here is you don't ask, you don't get, but it's really critical to create that rapport with your team where you're the leader, you're not the boss, you're not the jerk barking orders. It's like you care about their well-being, their futures, you give them opportunities and you recognize and reward them for outstanding achievement. Let's go back to recruiting, not hiring, because you can drive down I know you see this, Court. I know your audience sees this. It's like, I don't care where you are, Toledo, Ohio, San Francisco, anywhere in this country. You drive down the street, you see 100 now hiring signs on the changeable message boards. You see them in the window. You walk into a business, now hiring. You even see it on the back of trucks driving around. We're now hiring. What happens then is you're getting somebody else's nightmare employee if you get anybody at all that way. It's like there are three types of employees in any business, but we're talking restaurants here, and this applies to restaurants. We have A, B, and C players. Now, the C players are the people that aren't doing your business any favors. They're probably turning your guests off completely. These are the people that just show up for a paycheck. They're not motivated. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. They're calling in late, they're calling in sick, they're out back having a smoke half the time. It's like you don't need or want these people. Even though the mindset today is I need warm bodies on the floor to run my business, I'll put up with a certain level of that because I need people. Well, again, I think they're doing more damage to your business. You got to weed the garden and instead you got to focus on your A and B players. So every business has at least one, hopefully more, A player, and that goes without saying. It's someone with a great personality that has a true desire to serve the public, that is experienced, that gets along well with others. People like them, right? They have the right approach. They're ambitious. They want to move up in an organization. You wish you had 20 people like that or more, right?
Mhm.
And the B players are just like that also. They have all the similar attributes. The only thing they might be missing is maybe they never worked in a restaurant before. Maybe they lack that experience or a little bit of polish. They're going to become A players. And that's where mentoring and shadowing comes in. I'm a huge believer in using your A players to bring up the B players and demonstrate best practices. We never turned anybody loose either in the kitchen or on the floor unless they shadowed an A player, if not two or three A players, and people have different personalities and different styles, and what works for this one doesn't work for that one, but you can pick up great things if you shadow a couple different people. Okay, let's go back to the recruiting piece because I don't want to get off track. When I started my first restaurant 30 years ago, there was a hotel coming into my town. At the same time I'm opening this restaurant, a new hotel was being built and it's going to open around the same time. And they need hundreds of people, from valet parkers to housekeeping staff to servers and bartenders, and you name it, they needed it. And I'm thinking, how am I possibly going to get 20 people to staff this restaurant when this place needs to hire hundreds of people? And it wasn't a huge community. So I'm like, I was worried about that. I had one A player and I said, who do you know that isn't happy in their current job that you think would fit this culture that we're trying to develop here? And I'm going to tell you about what that culture was, but we were doing something unique and different and special. We were going to recognize people, we're going to reward them, we're going to train them. It's like we're going to give them real possibilities for the future. And I said, if you bring me any of those people, I'm going to give you $100 for every person like yourself that you think would fit this culture and would do great here. She brought me three people. And then one of those people brought me two people. And I paid this $100. And 30 years ago, paying out $100 bills to people just to get people in the door, right? That was an investment, not a cost. But I realized now, and even then, it costs you thousands of dollars to get a C player in the door. The average tenure of a restaurant employee, they say, a typical employee, is 3 to 4 months. And you hire this person and you train them or get them up to speed in the job. And then 3 months later, you either fire them or they leave on their own. And now you got to do it all over again. So, lost time, wages, productivity, and training costs you about $4,000 every time that happens. No restaurant can afford this. And it was similar back then. It was probably a couple $1,000s. So I'm like, I'm going to pay $100 bill to get great people. And then I'm going to give those great people $200 if they last 2 months and do a great job and if they assimilate our culture. And then I knew if we trained them for 2 months and if we recognized and rewarded them, chances are they weren't going to leave. And that turned out to be true. We fully staffed our restaurant by recruiting, not hiring. It's really interesting because there are now temporary agencies in many states that specialize in hospitality employees. I know there's one in my state, but whether you have a hospitality specific temp agency, there are pretty much temp agencies everywhere. And if you need short staff on short notice, intelligent people that can jump in and learn quickly, and then maybe if you treat them great, they might stay with you. Who knows? But this is just one website here for a company that specializes in hospitality, gotlanded.com. And I definitely recommend that you check them out. Here's a genius idea. I didn't think of this, wish I did, but I love to share. There's a restaurant chain in Southern California that has 28 locations and they're open 3 day parts a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner times 28 locations. You think they had a challenge with finding and keeping great people when all this craziness hit? They absolutely did. And they came up with this idea that we're going to give gift cards to our best guests, or any guests really, that is a customer here, and we're going to give them a $250 gift card for any referral that comes in the door that does a great job for 60 days. So, common sense dictates that it didn't cost this restaurant 250 bucks per gift card. It's the cost, it's their food cost. So if they had a 28% food cost, it's 28 cents on the dollar. It's not 250 bucks or a dollar on a dollar. So I thought that was genius. And they're able to fully staff 28 locations and rock and roll. So there's another idea. Again, a reasonable trial period. I think 2 months is fair. You reward the guest who refers, you reward the staff person that comes in the door, sort of a sign on bonus. You do a great job for us. In 60 days, I'm going to give you 200 bucks or whatever it is. And it's an investment, not a cost. And then a lot of restaurants do not put enough emphasis on the power of internal marketing. It's like it's everywhere in your restaurant. You got 4 walls, 10 walls, whatever it is, and you got lots of locations that are visible to your guests, and you can advertise for team members in a variety of ways, whether that's on social media, giant chalkboards, on your menus, your table tents, your bulletin boards in the bathrooms, whatever. And you might get some great people. And it's all about recruiting with incentives. So that worked really well for me. I know it's working for others today. So check that out. All right. Hospitality, family, and fun is the company culture that I built. Now, here's another paradigm shift. I am not about mission statements. Too many companies have what they call the mission statement. It kind of hangs on the wall. Nobody reads it, nobody cares about it, nobody practices it. Instead, a company culture is something that is an aura, it's an image, it's what people feel about working for you. And if you were to query or take a survey of all your team members today and say, what is it, what do you think our culture is? What do you think it's like to work here? There would be a common thread between a lot of what people say. And that's the foundation of your culture. But then you have to build that up and nurture it. So, hospitality, family, and fun was my culture because hospitality is the foundation of our business. Okay. And I'm going to tell you what my definition of that is in a minute. But I wanted the team to feel like family. I wanted our guests to feel like family. And I wanted everyone just to have fun. And that was wonderful. The guests were having fun and the team was having fun and it elevated everything. And there's just this sort of aura where a guest walks through the door and they just know that a place is running on 8 cylinders, not four. It's not controlled chaos. It's team spirit, it's respect, it's camaraderie, it's amazing dining experiences, it's service, and it's hospitality. But that comes with accountability. We're going to talk about that now. I mentioned that I'm a personal coach. And another thing the second thing I usually ask my clients is, do you have job descriptions for every position in your restaurant? 9 times out of 10, they don't have job descriptions. And I'm like, okay, well, there's why you have no accountability. I'm hearing lots of complaints like, why do my people not perform the way I expect them to? Why do my people show up late? Why are they just kind of here? And it's like I tell them what to do, and it's like they just don't do it. And they blame it on the mindset of the employee. But in reality, you, as the owner, if you're acting as a boss, you're failing these team members. But you can fix all that with a job description. So, a basic job description has 3 elements that are really important and powerful. I always started with something I called key success factors at the very top of any job description for any position in the business. And this changes for every position, but you figure out some keywords, single words or 2 word, phrases or whatever that are what you think that the person brings to the table to be successful in that job. And it might be reliable, it might be accuracy with cash, it might be, detail oriented, it might be hustle, it might be personality. A combination of those things, but write down 5 or 6 words that you expect that person to bring to the table. And when you sit down with this person, whether they're a new hire or an existing team member, you say, "This is what I need you to be successful here." The main body of a job description has primary responsibilities, and that might be 5 things, that might be 10 things or more. It varies with each job, but it's your job to be, as a leader, an owner, or a leader in your business, to really have a solid understanding of what you expect in every position, to understand that job and then understand high expectations and what the performance should be. So, in each one of those primary responsibilities, you very accurately detail what you expect. What is your standard, and what do you want to see for all this to be accomplished? And then next to every one of those responsibilities is a blank line. And I'll tell you why. When you sit down with a new hire or someone who's been working with you for a while, you read this to them, you share it with them. They have a copy in their hand, you've got a copy, and then after each one you say, "Do you understand what my expectations are for you to be successful in this responsibility? Can you do this to the best of your ability?" If the answer is yes, you have them initial that line. There's the accountability. Sometimes these responsibilities require some training. So, of course, we're going to train you in what those expectations are. But once you're trained, do you understand what I expect? Can you do this? If they say yes, if they initial yes, then 2 weeks later, 2 months later, you notice their performance going sideways or it's not meeting that expectation. Here's your proof. You sit them down in private, and here's the critique, not the criticism. And you throw the ball in their court and you say, "You told me here when you initialed this that you understood what I expected and that you could perform to the best of your ability. I'm not seeing that." And then instead of saying, "Get out there and do it right," like a boss would, you say, "What can you do to get your performance back on track so that you're meeting these expectations?" And then you sit there and you wait for the answer. And now they're on the spot now. They have to go out there and fix and correct the behavior. There's the accountability. They know you're going to be watching. They know what you expect, and they don't want to be called on the carpet a second time. And that is very powerful stuff. The third part of the job description is, and you got to think about this over time, because if certain people are just great at what they do and they stay there, it may not be relevant for them. But here's the part where you want to move people up. You say, if you do a great job in all these, primary responsibilities, here's the next step for you. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and I will recognize you for doing that. And if you perform well, there's going to be a bonus or an incentive in it for you. And there's a carrot on that job description. It's something for them to shoot for. And that's powerful stuff. Okay, that's the accountability piece. You got to be fair and completely impartial. You can never ever show favoritism of any people. You might have an A player that you absolutely love, and it's okay to praise those people, but you can't ever show that I favor that person. It's just not right. And it sends the wrong message, really. Okay, there's a book that I recommend, and you'll see at the bottom it's I Have 1 Minute Leader. The actual real title of this is The 1 Minute Manager. And I crossed that out on my copy because I don't like that word. Instead, it's about leadership. But really quickly, just as an overview, it's a really simple read. It's less than 100 pages. There's not a lot of words on every page, but it's essentially how I ran my businesses for 30 years. Whenever you catch somebody doing something right or great, you praise them. They call that a 1 minute praise. But that's just the title of the book. It doesn't have to be 60 seconds. It could be 10 seconds, 5 seconds. It could be 2 minutes. It's up to you. But essentially, you're catching somebody doing something wonderful or amazing. You praise them for that. Same thing when something's going sideways. We have the 1 minute critique, not criticism, where you sit somebody aside in your office. I already went through all that, and you put the ball in their court. So the book kind of gives you a detailed account of how that really works, but I recommend it for everyone, and it's easy to find anywhere. All right. Make it fun, keep it fun. Here's the recognition and rewards piece. This was really powerful for me. I created this. You can use this, or you can sort of use a takeoff of this, or come up with your own ideas. But I'll tell you how powerful it was. Weekly recognition and rewards. We had a program called Difference Dollars in all my restaurants, and here's how that worked. Whenever someone made a difference, they helped a team member, they solved a guest problem, whatever it was, if it was something over and above their job description that really stood out, maybe I recognized them or saw them doing this, or another team member knocked on my door and said, "Hey, Roger, did you hear about what Sally did today?" No, tell me about what Sally did today. Oh, they're going to win difference dollars. Okay, that's how people got nominated, right? So Fridays and Saturdays are usually the busiest days in our restaurants. And not everybody works on a Friday, not everybody works on a Saturday. And I really wanted I had 55 team members in my biggest restaurant. And I wanted everyone to be part of this program every week. So I did it twice. So before the start of service on a Friday and a Saturday, I called the whole team that was working that day together in the dining room or in the kitchen. I got up on my soapbox and I said, and this week's winner was, they all look forward to this, by the way. It was kind of fun once they got used to it. This week's winner is Sally Johnson, and this is what Sally did that made a difference. And I would go into glowing detail about Sally's difference. Everyone would clap, hooray, Sally, pat her on the back, whatever. I would give Sally a $20 bill and a can of Red Bull, and I would thank her very much for making a difference. And that was the simple piece, that was the recognition and the reward. But it didn't stop there. I went into my office and I had a template on the computer with big stars in the corners and big and bold that said difference dollars. And then I typed Sally's name in big and bold, and then also in bold, in glowing detail, I typed what the difference was. And then we framed these things. I had a whole bunch of frames in my office from Target or Walmart or whatever, the computer paper, 8.5 by 11 frames, and we framed these differences and we hung them up in the kitchen, in the employee area, in the employee bathroom where they hung up their coats. When I sold that place in 2014, there had to be three or 400 of these differences plastered everywhere. There's barely any room to keep putting them up. And it was so gratifying because whenever I hired somebody new, whenever they were on a 10, 15-minute break, having a soda, whatever, I couldn't help but notice they're walking the line and they're reading about some of these differences. And it spoke volumes about our culture, about how we treated our team, about what our expectations were. And we didn't have to fire people anymore. It's like they either fit that culture or they kind of voted themselves off the island. And it was so awesome because that's what created the longevity, the recognition, the rewards. The second powerful piece was prizes. There's that you don't ask, you don't get thing again, right? Every one of us in a restaurant spends lots and lots of money with a variety of suppliers that we buy from, food service suppliers and liquor suppliers and beer distributors and fresh linens and you name it. It goes on and on and on. One day I was at one of my liquor distributors just having a meeting about, business or whatever it was. I'm walking by a conference room on this tour of their new facility or something, and I see all this valuable merchandise sitting on a table, and there's sporting goods, and there's electronics, and there's neon signs, and there's clothing, there's all this stuff. And I just happen to say, "What's all that?" And the person that was giving me the meeting or the tour said, we work with lots and lots of suppliers also, and we ask them every year for a bunch of valuable stuff that we can use as employee incentives. But he goes, we have so many suppliers and they give us so much stuff. It's like it's kind of a problem that a lot of this stuff ends up collecting dust in the warehouse, and then we're losing our warehouse space, and then we have to figure out what. I'm like, wow, I've been doing business with you for years. And I go, I spend a lot of money with you every year. I'm like, can I have any of that stuff? I'd love to use it for employee incentives. The very next day, the truck shows up and everything that was on that table shows up at my back door. Wow, that's awesome. I had to clean out a supply closet and put all that stuff in there. And then whenever we caught somebody doing something great, that 1 minute praise thing, I'm like, hey, let's take a trip to the closet. And I loved when they were a new employee. It's like they had no idea about the closet. I go, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, no, thanks. You're doing a great job. Hey, come with me for a sec. I'd open the door and I'd say, see anything you like? It's yours. And their eyes would light up and they're like, really? It's like, how powerful is that? So people would walk away with valuable stuff and they could pick out anything they wanted. And then we started to have that problem because we then went to every supplier and asked them for stuff because we've been building this relationship and spending money with them for years. And then we had a lot of merchandise that we could give out as guest incentives. We started a mug club that had 1,200 members. and we could program these loyalty cards where every time a Mug Club member swiped it through the POS, meaning they gave the card to their server or their bartender, whenever they bought a meal or a beer or whatever, and this thing would randomly award prizes, and they could walk out with something. Hey, let's take a trip to the closet. You're the winner today, you know? And all this built loyalty with guests and loyalty with team members. So powerful stuff there.
One thing, if
Yeah,
I
please.
love this idea, and I
Yeah,
love the idea of the framing the pictures, and my marketing brain
yeah,
is going to every time you could take a picture of the person holding the like thing they did, put it on social
even better.
media. That
Oh,
tells your
yeah.
customers, hey, we've got this really good person doing great stuff.
Superstar.
But it also helps future employees see, look at how employees are valued. So I mean, did you tell that story? I mean, this might have been before social media and
It
such.
was. It actually was. And
Yeah,
you're
what do you
right. I
think?
mean, oh, I think that's a fabulous extension to this idea because you want to recognize your team in front of staff. I mean,
Mhm,
in front of guests. And we did it live on site at the restaurants, but now with
mm,
social media and all that kind of stuff, you want to tout your best people and give people reasons like, hey, we got to check that place out. They really care about their people are going to care about us. I think that's absolutely spot on, Court. Thanks for
yeah,
sharing
I
that.
think that's brilliant.
Oh my god, that's great. And again, there are very few original ideas now. You can take a germ of an idea that someone else has done, you can put your own spin on it like you just did, make it even better, improve it. But again, I mean, you gotta always have your eye out. I was always one to shop other businesses and try to get ideas for my business, even if it wasn't a restaurant. It's like
Mhm,
best practices. Wow, that's a cool thing. We're gonna put that in now. You always got to keep your eye. That's that fresh perspective I talked about.
yeah,
Take a look from the outside in, see what others are doing, and then play your best game.
yeah,
So now we've got leaders, right? And we want to empower them to take on more responsibility. And I guess the crux of this point is there's far too many restaurant owners that I meet that are tied to their businesses 7 days a week. And part of that is because of the challenges they've been through with the pandemic, and part of that is because of the staffing. But if we could solve some of those problems and empower our people to run and treat our business as if they own that business. I call that an intrapreneur. Everyone knows that an entrepreneur takes a risk to start a business in hopes of making a profit. But very few people know that an entrepreneur is someone that applies that approach even though they're an employee in someone else's business. And that's how you rise up in an organization. That's how you set yourself apart from other people working there. That's how you make more money. That's how you get more job fulfillment. That's how your career grows, right? So, empowered leaders grow your brand and your business. And there's several ways they can do that. So we always gave leadership bonuses for key results. So some of these things might be creating a loyalty program. So maybe if you've got most restaurants call them GMs or general managers. I call them general leaders. We had a general leader, we had a dining room leader, we had a bar leader, we had a dining room leader. Our biggest restaurant had lots of leaders, but we empowered each of those people to take on something new to grow the business, and then we always gave them an incentive for doing so, whether that was a bonus or a piece of the action. We did it both ways. So creating a loyalty program, increasing your takeout and delivery business, starting a catering program or private parties and events. The mug club thing I talked about, my bar leader created this mug club and we started small with like 20. Well, let me back up. Everyone probably knows what a mug club is, but you walk into these bars and the mugs are hanging, and a lot of people, unless they actually belong to the club, they don't really know how it works. But people pay a membership fee to have this exclusive mug that doesn't go home with them. It stays in the business, but it's numbered and it's hanging over the bar. And then they're recognized for being a member of this club. And the mugs have more volume than a standard pint glass. A standard pint glass is 16 ounces. Well, the mugs are 20 ounces. They could be 22 ounces. So they're actually getting more beer, and you might discount the price of the beer or you might keep it the same price as a 16-ounce pint, but there's value added there. But it's this exclusivity where people suddenly feel like that's my place and I'm going to tell my friends to join. And then the thing kind of grows like coral and they feel special because instead of holding the pint glass like the average customer, they've got this really cool mug. And you let them decorate the mug with stickers or Sharpies or artwork, whatever you want. It's like it's their mug to do what they want with. And the
Mm.
most powerful thing about it was you can get it sponsored, so there's no cost to it. So you can find radio stations or other businesses that you do business with that want to reach your customers through this mug club. And then they put their logo on the mugs and they print you t shirts with their logo on the t shirts that say mug club member and all that kind of stuff. And that's value added too. So it doesn't have to cost you anything. But the key is you sell memberships. And we used to sell them for $55 a piece each year. So you get an income stream now where people pay you up front for value they're going to receive in the future, and you want them to come in and you want them to spend money, but in some cases people pay you 55 bucks and you never see them again, so that's called breakage. But either way, you're making money. But the kicker is you're making money because these people now come into your business more frequently than they would if they were just regular customers. So before, if you got a popular restaurant, you might see a regular maybe twice a month, maybe 3 times a month if you're lucky. That's a lot, right, for a regular? But now these people join the mug club and they're in your place 2, 3, 4 times a week. And they're buying the beer and they're eating the food. And then you start a retail merchandise program and they're buying your t shirts and all that kind of stuff. And that's core business building right there. So, really quickly, we started with like 25 mugs just to see what would happen. I empowered my bar leader to do so, and he sold out the 25 in like a day or two. And then we ordered more mugs and he sold those out and he sold those out. And the thing just grew and grew. And he really knew how to promote this thing, right? So I gave him an incentive. He got like 5 or $7 for every single mug he sold. Do you know that when I sold that business in 2014, he had sold that club to have 1,200 mug club members? The mugs were everywhere. He ran out of space to hang these mugs,
Wow.
and he got a piece of the action for every single one. But imagine that. That was $60,000 a year in free and clear cash to my business that people would renew every single year, and it was fully sponsored so that the sponsor paid for the mugs and paid for the t-shirts and paid for those loyalty cards, and all that stuff was paid for. It was no cost to my business. I just collected the money. But the kicker was, like I said, now people are in 2 and 3 and 4 times a week spending money. And then the prizes were reinforcers. They'd sit down and have a beer and they just won a pair of skis or a tennis racket or an iPad or something cool because my suppliers gave us all this free stuff.
Mm.
So that was really, really powerful. So starting a mug club is an idea, and you can incentivize somebody to take that on if you sell draft beer in your business. If you have a coffee shop, you can start a mug club. It works for coffee shops, it works for draft beer, that kind of stuff. I always empowered my leaders to keep their costs, keep my costs, food costs, beverage costs, labor costs, all that stuff in the sweet spot. And I would track this stuff every single week. And if they stayed there, they would get a percentage, they'd get a nice incentive for staying in that sweet spot because low costs mean higher profits in your business.
Mm.
Come up with cash cows. You cannot have too many cash cows in your business. For those, I know we've all heard that term, but just to refresh your memory, a cash cow is anything that has very high perceived value. When you put it in front of the guest, it has what I call wow factor. It looks like a dynamic menu item. It looks amazing. It smells amazing. It's going to taste amazing, but it doesn't cost very much to serve the guest. It's almost pure profit. That can be a byproduct of something else. It's like you can come up with some pretty amazing cash cows. And I probably had 4 or 5 of them in my restaurant. It lowers your food cost, it increases your profit, and you can even afford to give these things away working with other businesses that'll drive you business. Give a free offer. Hey, if your customers come in with this coupon, I'll give them a free X, and then I'll give you a kickback in trade for every dollar that comes in the door. And that's a powerful program. I could talk about that all day long. Everything I'm talking about, Court, by the way, to your audience, is all a template. It's all in something we call the academy that I'll talk about later. So if people are taking down notes right now and really absorbing this stuff, that's great. But just know that this whole thing is available in a turnkey template at the end of the program. But anyway, all right. Ordering efficiency. That's really important. If you got a kitchen manager or bar manager, it's really important that they know how to order efficiently so that there's not too much product and they're not running out of the 86ing stuff, and that nothing is getting wasted or spoilage or even stolen, right? Because that loses you money. The margins in this business are low enough already, but if you've got a wasted spoilage and a theft program, it's like your margins going even lower, and there go the profits. So I incentivize my leaders to stay. with strong ordering, sweet spots, all that kind of stuff. Lots of cash cows, and they all got a piece of the action for that. And then lastly, I had a kitchen leader that would come up with these off the menu specials that were just to round out the regular menu, gave my service team something special to talk about at the tables, and every one of these was more profitable than our regular menu items. And they would change all the time. And that was a draw for our guests because they could get something new on the menu. So these are all just some ideas on how you can incentivize your leaders.